we have this document that I've given you, and it basically is sort of a template that you would otherwise later fill out after you've done the HTML stuff. And it's a way for us to have something to start with. It's an outline form, because HTML is going to be very much dependent on nesting and having kind of a hierarchy of meaning and its semantic tags. So let's just take a look at this really quick. And right now, this is just like a rich text file, just a regular old, text document that's got some formatting. And the formatting visually helps us understand a little bit about what's going on. So at the very top where it says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, welcome," that kind of indicates to us that that is one of the most important things about what we're about to read in this page, in that it is first and foremost on the page, for one thing. Secondly, it is bigger and bolder than everything. So we have some visual cues about it being more dominant than everything else. And then there's this little aside underneath it. And then next is something that says a little bit about me. And you can see that the next, like the second largest things are a little bit about me, my goals, and miscellaneous stuff. Those would be sort of like the second level of important headings. And then nested underneath each of those, there are some other slightly larger headings than the rest of the text. Like under a little bit about me is my interests and places I'd love to live. And then under goals, we have immediate and long term. And then under miscellaneous stuff, we have quote for the day and definition list, recipes for, and then success and happiness. So it's just kind of like a general outline. And then underneath those, we've got some lists and some block quotes and things like that. So I just want to show you that we look at something like this and we automatically see some kind of order to it because it has some visual meanings. Well, HTML in its structure, it's not about visual stuff necessarily. It's really about the semantic meaning in the tags. So what we need to do is we need to figure out like kind of how to block this stuff out so that we could say, all right, well, if we're going to be able to push things around on the page visually, then if somebody's blind or if a search engine is looking at the website, then those things like a screen reader or search engine need to also be able to get some kind of semantic meaning out of it without having to visually see it, right? So that's what the tags are all about. So let's visually block it out, and then we can translate our visual blocking of meaning into semantic tags. So first of all, what I would suggest is, if you wanted to sort of follow along with me and think about this in the same way, is you could print this out on a piece of paper. And if you have a printer, or you could print it at school or something, and then you take some colored pencils or even markers or something like that and kind of draw some boxes around these areas. And that always helps me visualize whenever I have a bunch of content and I'm trying to get started and I'm trying to figure out how to develop a hierarchy for my content. Sometimes it's just easier to start with a piece of paper and a pen or pencils and push things around on the page to help me figure out my hierarchy. So I'm going to do this in a computer program, just because it's going to be a lot easier for you to see than if you're watching me draw some colored lines. So just want to be really clear about when I do this color blocking, it's not the way that I actually would want the thing to look. It's really just so that you can visually see right off the bat content blocks and the hierarchical blocks and the semantic blocks that I'm trying to designate. Okay, so the first thing that I would probably do is figure out where the major sections are. And I'm thinking that I've got sort of like a header up there with the "Hi, I'm so and so welcome," along with the aside, and then it's like a banner kind of, and then maybe I would have a whole content area, and then down there where the copyright is, it looks like that should be maybe like a footer or something. So let's see what that would look like. Okay, so what I did was I just made some black boxes and I made the text white. So the black boxes indicate at the top, you can see that that's a separate area, and that would be like your banner. And then the next long section would be like a main content area. And then the blue section would be like your footer. Okay. Now, if within those areas, we still have to keep organizing in a nested way. So I'm thinking that the next thing I would want to do is sort of break up these content areas into articles. So if I were to turn on my color blocking for articles, you can see what we have up in the banner section is we've got the hi, I'm so-and-so, and an aside, okay? And then we move down to the major content area, which you can see because of the break in the black, right? So we have a whole new section now. And inside of that, we have 3 distinct articles because we've got a little bit about me, my goals, and miscellaneous stuff. That's how those categories are sort of broken in. So inside of each of those articles, we need a header. Typically, it's not absolutely required, but a lot of times a really common thing in articles is to put a header so that you kind of know what the topic of that article is, so that it can kind of stand alone. And so if we were to do that, you can see that these would be our header areas. So the hi, I'm so and so, a little bit about me, my goals, miscellaneous stuff. Now, typically inside of a header, you would want to put a heading, right? Like a headline of some sort, so that you understand specifically what the actual heading is for that header. And if we wanted to do that, let's start first with the H1, which is at the very top. And you can see that I went ahead and I switched out the color of the text so it'll be easy to see as I start pulling these color blocks in. So this is the H1, and you can see visually that it's nested inside of the green header, all right, which is also nested inside of an article. And then the next thing that I would want to go ahead and do is make sure that all of my other headers have headings, and those would be H2s because we already have an H1 on the page. Now technically with HTML5 you can have more than one H1, but it is still a best practice. Most people would still say that it's a best practice to only have one H1 on the page. It kind of just depends on who you talk to, but anyway, it's not absolutely a no-no to have more than one H1 on a page, but we're going to do a best practice and keep one H1 on the page. And then all those H2s would sort of, in meaning, they would be nested under the title of hi, I'm so-and-so, welcome. And it makes sense that a little bit about me, my goals, and miscellaneous stuff would be sort of subcategories of, you know, here's who I am, welcome to me, right? Okay, so those are the H2s that are inside of those other article headers, okay? And then each of those sections have other subsections. So for instance, a little bit about me, you would see that it has my interests and places I'd love to live, and then also my goals has immediate and long-term as categories. And then under miscellaneous stuff, we have quote for the day and recipes for whatever, okay? Now, each of those things are going to also have, not necessarily nested, but semantically, if a search engine or a screen reader sees an H2 and then immediately it sees something that's not a heading, like a paragraph or a list or whatever, it knows that it sort of fits within the realm of that heading. Sort of like if you were to read a newspaper article and you saw a heading, you would know that the paragraph text underneath it should go with that heading, right? That makes sense. So we could turn on the lists, and you can see that we have some different types of lists, and we could also even turn on the paragraphs, which are in orange. All right, I'm going to go back to the lists really quickly. So the lists, you can see the first one is unordered, and we have in dark blue kind of is like the actual UL tag, the unordered list tag, and then these little light colored things would be like the list item tags, LI tags. All right, and then this list is an ordered list, so it goes 1, 2, 3 instead of just having bullets. And then that would be OL for the sort of darker purpley color, and then inside of that you would have list items, LI tags. And then again there's another unordered list under immediate and long-term goals. And then down at the bottom you see that we have a definition list. Definition list is very different than ordered and unordered lists. It has a different kind of structure. So this sort of dark teal is the definition list, or the DL. And then nested inside of that you have definition terms, which would be success and happiness. And those are DT. And for every DT, it's not nested, but you're going to have a DD, which is definition data, immediately following DT, or a definition term, okay? And so that's what we've got at the bottom, All right, and then if I turn those paragraphs back on, you can see that I've got a paragraph that leads to the list. It explains what we're about to look at in the list, and then we also have this block quote as well as the aside up at the top. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this view right here where we just defined some sections and a footer, and what we're going to do is I'm going to move over into my HTML, and let's just kind of get started with that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up my folder structure. All right, so if you remember from a previous demo, whenever I showed you how to use CyberDuck, we had set up something that would be a parallel structure on your desktop or some other place in your computer called Matt125 last name first name, or maybe it was last name first name Matt125. All right, and this would be parallel structure for your student folder that's on the server, right? If you look inside of that, we had also created an empty folder in there called assignment 1, and as you would go through the semester, it'd be assignment 1, assignment 2, and so on. So we're going to use assignment 1 as the basis for our project whenever we make a new project, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and open assignment 1 real quickly. And this is that example.rtf that I had downloaded. I'm just going to drop it in there so that I have a copy of it in the right place with my project, because I'm just going to use it for reference, okay? And if you wanted to look at that again, I'm just going to take a quick look. It looks like that, right? That's what we've been talking about. And this was something you would download from the assignment page on the website or from the tutorial page. Okay, so I'm going to close this and I'm going to go and open my brackets editor, and we're going to start a new project. So because we had already made the folder structure, I'm going to go up to File and I'm going to say Open Folder, and we're going to find it here on the desktop in our class folder, and we're going to choose assignment 1 and say open, and you can see that now this is our new project, and we don't really have anything in it, so let's just get started by making a new file. So if I right click, I can say new file, or I could do it up here from the menu. So if I do new file, let's just call it index.html. Okay, and you'll see that automatically what it does, if you remember from the brackets demo, is that our project information is down here, and then anything that's currently open will be up here under working files. Now, you'll notice that it didn't automatically put any basic syntax in there for us. So we could either start typing it out, right? Or the other thing we could do is we could go and look for a plugin or an extension. And this will be a good refresher on how to do this, because we haven't looked this up yet, even though I showed you a bunch of other plugins that you should have already installed. Let's click on the extension manager. I wanted to leave this one for you so that you would see as we started to make it how convenient this would be. All right, so under available plugins, we're going to go up here in the search and we're going to type HTML templates. All right, and you'll see maybe about 4 or 5 down, right, there's this thing called HTML templates right here. And if you wanted to get more info, you could click this and it would take you to the guy's GitHub information. And I actually recommend before you install stuff that you actually do it. I actually already had it open. And take a quick look at any kind of known issues. It's a good thing to look at. And it does say known issue is that this will overwrite the contents of the current file if anything exists. So you got to kind of be careful when you're using this. It's really, you would have to intentionally go and choose something in a current file, but it could potentially happen. So just be aware of that, okay? All right, now the next thing is we're just gonna go over here to install. We're gonna install it, successful, close, we're gonna close it. Okay, and now what we need to do, and the other thing at that GitHub page is it would tell you how to use it. So what you do is while a file is currently open, so like you would want to go ahead and create your blank file, go up here to edit and then choose HTML templates. And then you're going to choose the template type. We're going to choose HTML5 every time. And there you go, boom. And it automatically went ahead and it put all of this stuff that's absolutely the minimum requirement for an HTML document so that you didn't have to type all of that stuff, because it's going to be in every single page that you make. All right, and so let's go ahead and end this here and then move on to the next one, and we'll get started formatting this page.